Welcome back to the techno-communist conversation. I'm going to expand on some ideas that I've discussed on this podcast before. Um, basically, how to capitalize on an artificial intelligence takeoff to see that um, leads to humane and sustainable economics here, and not the highly techno-fascistic path that we are currently on. So this is an AI-powered path to a sustainable and equitable future, and that requires AI-run governance structures. It requires the abolition of private wealth. There's no real way around that. Um, if we continue to allow private wealth to continue, we will continue to be pushed by steps, large or small, closer and closer to capitalism's climate apocalypse. We are 5 years away from breaching runaway overheating, marked by 2 degrees of overheating, which will occur in 5 years, at which point um, our environment will become inhospitable to human life. Climate change presents an existential risk unlike any other faced by humanity, and yet people are not responding in an appropriate way to this difficulty. And so I urge you to consider transformative actions, direct actions of a revolutionary kind. Join a communist organization, um, support other organizations of a more eco-socialist kind, and there's no reason, as I said on the last show, that any fossil fuel company, any livestock lobby, livestock concern really even, should have one brick standing upon another at this point, knowing what we know, that humanity is likely to die, or if humanity does not go extinct in 50 years' time, as we see temperatures of 150 degrees or higher where we can no longer live, what will happen instead is that many billions in the global south will die, and the people most responsible, European fascists, uh, people of European descent who are highly fascistic, um, will be the ones to survive. So again, we are living in a world where um, already millions of people die or are made climate refugees for your luxury items. It's a horror that is largely unrecognized. People, of course, talk about climate change, but they don't really. Um, we don't have the bandwidth intellectually, emotionally, to really wrap our heads around this problem. But we must begin to act appropriately. So I am, of course, a cybernetic socialist. So I want to describe ways to use the potential of so-called artificial intelligence and an AI takeoff to orchestrate a transition to a sustainable and humane economic system within these 5 years. The scientific consensus is, of course, clear. Humanity has a very limited window of opportunity to avert catastrophic climate change. Current projections suggest that this 5 year period within which we must implement drastic changes, such as the near abolition of all fossil fuels and livestock systems, replacing those with renewable or facsimiles to animal products. This is what we must do to prevent runaway overheating. And the continued business as usual, the liberal greenwashing, the denial, the nihilism, um, all of this is really the voice of capital here, and its insatiable appetite for endless growth and its greedy mechanisms. And all of this is a guaranteed recipe for disaster. The existing capitalistic, imperialistic, fascistic economic orders, dominated by the Western powers, with their inherent inequalities, cannot be the foundation for a sustainable future. Um, I recently read an article by a man named John Nosta, and the article is called "The New Era of Super Exponential Growth," and it describes transformative potential of artificial intelligence innovation. But this is, of course, itself kind of liberal whitewashing along the lines of that which I've described, um, because this person is in no way suggesting systemic change, much less evolutionary action. But AI systems are at present rapidly evolving from relatively simple machines to multimodal problem-solving entities with a nearly intuitive grasp of complex challenges such as those that we face. Unfortunately, they are all micromanaged by fascistic forces, so they will not be used to that end very much at present. However, there are many open source possibilities, and there is the possibility that you, citizen of Earth, will band together with many others to common purpose and defeat these fascistic forces. That is the only opportunity for human survival. However, this advanced computing paradigm shift does present incredible opportunities to reimagine our economic and social structures for the benefit of all. To do this, we must move beyond imperialist, fascist, and capitalist mechanisms that are currently dominant to a cybernetic planned economy. Um, I have in recent years made a study of cybernetic socialism, and cybernetic socialists propose a radical departure from the existing economic model. We advocate for the establishment of a cybernetic planned economy, uh, um, which could have been managed by simpler digital devices, such as those developed in the 1990s, absent the influence of the aforementioned fascistic forces. But today, as we are leaving that world of relative analog technology for super intelligent systems and super intelligent human beings, hybrid systems, um, we have no choice, in my view, but to consider the cybernetic socialist course and come up with systems that will fill these gaps within these 5 years, um, that we must abolish private wealth um, and defeat the forces of empire and capital. So these advanced computing paradigms developed by so many capable scientists, engineers, and others, and requires more socialistic-minded scientists, engineers, social theorists, and others. And if we were to find such a workforce, we would be able to then prioritize certain kinds of goals, such as human well-being, um, the super intelligent hybrid systems of the kinds that I've described many times on this channel and in my audiobook, also available on this channel. This AI will be able to ensure that every citizen has access to the necessities of life, including food, shelter, healthcare, and education. Today, this is not a guarantee. Even in the so-called wealthiest country in the world where I live, the United States, this is by no means a guarantee. There are many millions of people, for example, who are unhoused or highly unstably housed, couch surfing, living in their cars, in abusive relationships with relations and such, and unable to leave. Um, this is many, many millions of people, and if you include the people who are in abusive relationships with for-profit organizations, it's most people. And when you look at another part of the world, um, there are approximately 1 billion people whose situation is somehow even worse than that, who spend some many years of their lives without access to potable water or food, and they die on a short number of years later. This is a horror movie that we are living in, not a humanistic a fantasy world that we often prefer to see it as. Um, of course, a humane and sustainable economic system requires planetary sustainability, and this hybrid superintelligent system will make resource allocation decisions guided by long-term environmental considerations as well, promoting a harmonious relationship between humans and the biosphere. I am not inclined to think, however, that we should look at superintelligence as a magic bullet that will solve the problems of climate change. We have to do the work as citizens of this planet and as activists and as revolutionaries of um, accepting that certain sectors must be banned immediately, namely fossil fuels and livestock systems, the number one and two causes of climate change. We'll explore a little bit now the work of Stafford Beer, who was someone who worked closely with the Salvador Allende administration to build what would probably be described as the closest approximation of a cybernetic socialist governance and economic structure. And Many communists do not regard Salvador Allende as the best of communists, and they would probably even look askance at Stafford Beer to a higher degree. But in this context, they did good work. Stafford Beer envisioned this decentralized information-based economy managed by algorithms. Um, However, by today's standards, and unlike Beer's models, um, the superintelligent cybernetic planned economy that is discussed on this channel and in this talk, um, we use highly advanced computing models with the capability to learn and adapt in real time and connect a network of users, ultimately all citizens of Earth, to one another through a digital proxy, a digital twin, an AI agent, which will be stored on their computer. And the AI agent will work with the other AI agents, and this network of digital twins will interact with the users as well in the form of click-through processes. For example, you answering an email a few times a day, perhaps while you're sitting on the crapper. Uh, Relatively low impact experience for you as a citizen, but nevertheless, this hybrid superintelligence that I have described, which could already be begun to be built by AI agents of about the strength of, say, Llama 3, a downloadable um, um, a chatbot that's coming out within about 2 months, or others which are could be more easily modified. Llama 3 is called open source, but it's not easily modified. It would require, this network would require some modification of the chatbot so that they're able to be more multimodal in certain senses and not so focused on things like language. Um, um, Abolishing private wealth and embracing AI are the same thing. We live in a world, as I said, where resource allocation is poorly handled. And the cornerstone of this new system must then be the abolition of private wealth. Even if you have some reservations about this, consider that your reservations are leading you to accept your own death rather than doing what need be done to ensure your survival. This system will then be able to emphasize collective ownership of the means of production through the mechanism that I have described. This would have to be built out and elaborated on a great deal more, and more equitable distribution of resources. Resource allocation can no longer be dictated by the whims of fascistic-minded people or the so-called free marketplace, which is, of course, in no sense free. Um, or the hoarding instincts of the elites who are able to micromanage so many of these systems to their benefit. No concern for their own ultimate survival. They are even the very, very privileged are unlikely to be the ones who come out on top in the scenario where much of humanity dies. They might think that they will, but tribal people living in Papua New Guinea who are above the fray of all this are as likely to survive as they will. Um, um, Instead, the AI will use its vast processing power and sophisticated algorithms to ensure a fair and efficient distribution of resources based on actual needs and environmental impact. Um, this approach is further informed by works of Yanis Varoufakis, who is another individual like the others I mentioned, who is not uniformly regarded by Marxists as a comrade, but who has nevertheless done work that informs this conversation. He's an economist who advocates for a post-capitalist economy driven by social purpose rather than profit. And that turns us to the post-capitalist necessaries, which is basically the need for universal basic services that can be distributed to all human beings, um, including probably something like a basic income. But if you recall, a country that did not have many millions or half of its population on the razor's edge of being unhoused, the USSR. The USSR had something like a housing authority that would assure housing to all people, and there was no private wealth controlling housing as it is in the fascist West. But they also had a job program that guaranteed suitable work to all, and that work, um, about 6 to 7% of their income went to housing. They were also guaranteed through a rudimentary single-payer healthcare system, healthcare, and they were guaranteed other necessaries of life. So the universal basic services concept, not the same. In the 21st century, more 21st century variety, is not exactly the same as a basic income. However, guarantees along this line would ensure that every citizen has a financial security to pursue their true calling or their passions of a more frivolous kind, perhaps, contribute to society and navigate the transition to a new economic paradigm. I believe that we could see techno-communism achieved in a short number of years if people begin to wake up and accept the reality of the situation and do what needs to be done. Um, Universal basic services, of course, and basic income have been explored by many scholars and economists. I've written on the subject myself, even previously. Um, and these are potential solutions to challenges posed by this higher automation framework and runaway income inequality that we see in this world of ours. Um, a little bit more about the concept of AI sidekicks that I alluded to. Um, a vision for such a program could have a hook. I'm interested in radical life extension or the building of a public health service that's able to treat aging as a reversible condition. So some of the writing that I've done, which I've not shared, is on um, focusing this network of AI sidekicks initially in that direction. But the core technology can be repurposed to a broad range of grand human challenges. The network of AI sidekicks can provide invaluable assistance to individuals as well during these difficult times and these economic and social changes. Um, I would encourage you, if you're interested in reading more about what AI agents are able to do for individuals. There's a lot of good reading on the subject, but I'm not going to expand any further on that here. However, the concept itself, the idea of this AI agent network, a kind of something that would kind of function as a proxy hive mind, um, is um, um, is I think the best way to advance in this early 21st century, where we face the challenges of runaway climate change being a foregone conclusion in only 5 years. Um, while the essay that focuses on AI sidekicks here um, is focusing on social activism, a core principle of personalized AI companions could also be a more intimate one, offering support and guidance that could be readily adapted to the challenges of large-scale economic transition. Um, some may envision a future where AI replaces humans altogether. I have met transhumanists um, who advocate for this sort of thing in their own way. They're not really advocating for much of anything except for bourgeois garbage for the most part. Um, but we must untangle this knot of dystopian ideas as we think about this concept of proxy hive mind and hybrid artificial superintelligence. We want to advocate for an appropriate symbiotic relationship between humans and advanced computing and advanced interfaces. And we can draw inspiration from the works of many who have written on the concept of the cyborg, and perhaps I'll add some a background to that in the comments to this video. But we must provide social values, ethical framework, um, and inspiration to guide the development and application of this humane and sustainable AI-run planned economy. Um, More than anything, that requires a basic level of literacy on these subjects, a basic level of literacy in the subjects of Marxism and related lines of thought, and a political will to see that this is done. Um, and advanced computing does offer unprecedented and unparalleled problem-solving capabilities and data processing power today. So this should allow us to address these complex challenges at the scale required, but again, only if we're not making the problem worse, which means actively fighting against capitalists and other fascistic-minded and elitism-minded individuals. Um, the role of open source development in this sort of thing. The development of a super intelligent hybrid system, as described, managing this cybernetic socialist planned economy, um, must necessarily have open source elements, and also be subject to oversight by the users, citizens, you, my comrades. Um, and we cannot afford to allow control of these powerful tools to fall in the hand of um, the few corporations or governments who now control these things and terribly abuse that. Um, Open source development is an area that I think is undervalued by my fellow Marxists. So I think it bears repeating that this is an important area, and we must use it to foster the needed transparency, encouraging not just global collaboration, but the building of necessary institutions in your nation here in the United States, and again, as this network grows to a certain size, the risks of missteps and misuse will shrink quite quickly. But at this time, um, manipulation and misuse is a very real risk. Um, this approach aligns with the principles of global governance advocated by folks like Rosenau, who emphasize the need for international cooperation to address global challenges. None of the people that I've really mentioned in this essay are Marxists. Um, so I'll take a moment to suggest that you read the works of Paul Cockshott. He's written a number of scholarly works that describe how to build cybernetic socialism and to deal with the problems of climate change or address many of concerns and give a good deal of factual information about climate change. Um, the window for a sustainable future is closing rapidly, and we stand at a crossroads, and the path forward demands not incremental adjustments, and incrementalism, of course, is no improvement at all because it's routinely sabotaged by fascistic forces, so no progress is made. But we must take a far more radical and revolutionary approach and demand the transformation of our economic and social systems and institutions by harnessing the power of this so-called exponential AI more correctly rather than merely weaponizing hypercapitalism for the quicker destruction of the human race. We must embrace the principles of cybernetic socialism, and in doing so, we can forge a future where technology serves humanity and the planet for generations to come. And I hope that my words will serve as a call to action to you, and I invite you to join this conversation, the techno-communist conversation in the future, but also to start conversations of your own and to light a fire that creates a global conversation because we must collectively, as comrades, build this just and sustainable world today before it is too late.